The four-day working week arouses general sympathy, but very often is portrayed as being harmful to the economy. Yes, we would all be happier, but the economy would be the price we had to pay for the good life. In my new book, Friday is the New Saturday, I want to change this narrative and explain why the four-day working week will actually improve rather than harm our economies. I see it not as a partisan policy or a win for the labor movement, but as a social innovation, a better way to organize economic activity in the 21st century. Now, we have to start with an important distinction. The news you hear about the four-day working week is about a management practice implemented by firms to improve their businesses. Firms that have experimented with a four-day working week find that workers come more rested, so they can work more intensively in the other days. It reduces absenteeism and turnover and associated costs, burnout, stress, and workers also make fewer errors and mistakes. And overall, it makes the business better. Now, my proposal is different. I propose what economists call a macroeconomic policy, a top-down policy implemented to the entire economy through legislation over a period of 4 to 6 years. And the idea is simple, is to coordinate all economic activity that occurs over the week, let's say in offices, stock markets, banks, universities, coordinated over 4 days, Monday to Thursday, coordinate all economic activity that occurs over the weekend, Friday to Sunday. And there are many jobs in the economy that occur continuously throughout the 7 days in key services, hospitals, restaurants, supermarkets, hotels. They would still occur over 7 days, but the standard work week of workers would be only 4 days. When we talk about the management practice, the benefits of the four-day working week stay within the firm and the worker, but I think the wider benefits to the economy will come because of this coordination of everyone coordinating on the 4+3. Now, when you first see this, it just looks unnatural because we are so used to the 5+2 model, but really there's nothing biological or astrological or theological about working 5 days. The working week is a social, political, and economic construct. In the 19th century, people worked 6 days and rested on Sunday. And it was in 1908 that the first firms in the US started implementing this radical and new management practice called the 5-day working week. The movement got a big boost when Henry Ford, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time, implemented it all his factories, but still by 1929, only 5% of the US workforce was on the 5-day working week. It moved from a management practice to the macroeconomy in June 1938 with the approval of the Fair Labor Standards Act, a key part of the Roosevelt's New Deal that gave 2 years for the firms, eligible firms, to implement the 5-day, 40-hour week that started becoming the norm. It didn't apply to all firms, only to the ones doing interstate commerce, so the larger firms. And then it expanded in the following decades, 40s, 50s, and 60s, to reach other corners of the economy. Now, the criticisms that you hear today about the 4-day working week are exactly the same as the criticisms that you hear then by the about the 5-day working week. It's a catastrophe, unrealistic, etc. Now, what is really remarkable of studying this is that once it was implemented, the critics disappeared. No one wanted to go back to the 6+1. And not just that, they gave rise to the first visionaries of the 4-day working week. The most unlikely one was Republican Vice President Richard Nixon in 1956, that said the 4-day working week would be coming soon. Why was this? Why did the critics disappear and give rise to the first visionaries of the 4-day working week? Because people realized once it was implemented that the 5-day working week was a better way to organize economic activity in the 20th century. And we had it for more than 80 years. And right now, I feel that the 4-day working week is a better way to organize economic activity for the 21st century. Think about it. In 80 years, everything in our societies have changed. the technology we use, the jobs we do, the speed in which we communicate, the length of our lives, the number of years that we study, the structure of the family and the nature of our social interactions. Everything has changed, but we still think that 5 is that ideal number, as if it was a constant in mathematics. Now, I'm going to give you 8 powerful economic reasons for the 4-day working week, and I'm going to enlist the help of 4 of the greatest political economists in history. So, under John Maynard Keynes, reason number 1, because it is possible. Reason number 2, because it will fuel the economy through the demand for leisure industries. Joseph Schumpeter, the prophet of innovation. Reason number 3, because it will increase productivity. And reason number 4, because it will unleash the potential of a vast talent pool of innovators. The seed of the deepest innovation is planted with time, not with money. And the greatest of examples is again Henry Ford. He built his first car with the internal combustion engine, working 3 years while having a 6-day day job in one of Thomas Edison factories. He became Henry Ford because of what he did in his leisure time. And like him, countless number of entrepreneurs, inventors, innovators, writers, artists that had a day job but became known for what they did in their leisure time. And ultimately, that's where they contributed to the economy. Karl Marx, reason number 5, because it will reduce technological unemployment. And reason number 6, because it will raise wages and reduce inequality. And Friedrich von Hayek, the figure of classical liberalism, reason number 7, because it will give people more freedom to choose what to do with their time, even if they want to work more. People will be freer to work more under a 4-day working week if they wish to, than they are currently free to work less under a 5-day working week. And reason number 8, by sharing the benefits of economic progress, it will reconcile a polarized society and crush populist movements that currently pose a grave downside risk to our economies. Now, these 4 political economists are torchbearers of particular and opposing ideologies, and each one view the economy in a different way, how it adjusts and what is important. And economists disagree, that's in our nature. So I don't expect everyone to agree with all these 8 arguments. But this is my view of the 4-day working week as a social innovation, is whether you are conservative or liberal or progressive or Marxist, you might not agree with all the arguments, but there will be arguments that will speak to you. I think we can all unite behind this idea. Now, I make the case that there are going to be economic benefits from the 4-day working week, but then we have to weigh them against the costs of implementing. And the costs of implementing come mainly because of the disruption of doing things in a different way. But even those costs, I think they are much smaller than what you can think in the first instance. Let us start with this idea, and it's really an accounting view that for firms to survive, to be able to implement, if workers work only 80%, they have to have a 20% wage cut. And actually there is a name for this. This is called part-time. This is the deal that most people in part-time have, and already 25% of the UK workers are on part-time, most of them on a 4-day working week. But this is undesirable if you think about implementation in the economy. But in the book, I explained there's actually 7 other forms of adjustment. And I think the most important is that we have to think time itself is an adjustment. So economies are not static, they are dynamic. Before the pandemic, the UK wages were growing at 4% a year. Probably they are growing as fast as that right now. If firms and workers agree on no wage increases in the year prior and the year after the implementation, then that already takes care of 8 percentage points out of the 20 percentage points needed for the adjustment. If firms give 1 Friday per month instead of wage increases, over 5 years, they would have implemented the 4-day working week in a very smooth and non-disruptive way. But even this the need for these might be limited because of the large gains in productivity and reduction in costs that firm after firm that have experimented with a 4-day working week find. Now, for some occupations, if these gains are not as large, there could be an adjustment in hours, half an hour more or 1 hour more in the remaining days could already take care of 1/4 to 1/2 of the adjustment. And there are other ways, increasing prices or reduction in profits for some firms, or government subsidies to be used with moderation. The point here is one size does not fit all. Economies, different jobs are different occupations, different industries, but and we should also not look for just one adjustment, but a combination of them to minimize the disruption. I think this gives enough flexibility together with some exemptions. It gives enough flexibility to implement it in a very non-disruptive way. So this is my view. Please post your questions below, and I'll try my best to answer them.